Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Arjun Chaudhary. Here are the top stories that we're tracking for you on Friday, the 11th of March. Pakistan Supreme Court rejects Rangers' appeal for prosecuting power. Exiled leaders stage anti-Pakistan protest at United Nations headquarters in Geneva. And Afghan refugees stranded in Greece plead for open borders. And now for all the details. India has granted a credit line of $2 billion in development financing to Bangladesh. It follows India's $1 billion assistance provided to Bangladesh in 2011 for infrastructure development.
India signed an agreement in development financing to Bangladesh through the government's external lending arm, Exim Bank. It is India's biggest ever credit facility to another country. The credit line would be used to finance development in the power sector, railways, road transportation, information and communication technology, shipping, health and technical education sectors.
The signing of this agreement paves the way for initiation of projects in various identified sectors. Apart from infrastructural projects, there is a special focus on social sector cooperation pertaining to health, which involves establishment of medical colleges and hospitals, education, under which there will be modernization of 2 teacher training institutes, and vocational training involving modernization of 49 polytechnic institutes.
The deal comes after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's announcement of the new credit line to Bangladesh during his Dhaka visit in June last year. Exim Bank is also in the process of extending $1.60 billion in buyer's credit to an India-Bangladesh joint venture to build a 1,320 megawatt thermal power plant project.
Moving on to news from Pakistan. Supreme Court has rejected paramilitary Rangers' proposal to set up their policing infrastructure in the country's southern city of Karachi. The apex court instead has directed the government to approach the executive instead.
Rejecting Sindh Rangers' appeal to establish a separate police station in Karachi, Pakistan's Supreme Court has stated that the matter needs legislative intervention, which is beyond the jurisdiction of the court. The 3-judge bench stated that both the federal and provincial government of Pakistan's southern Sindh should set up an apex committee to find a solution. Earlier, the Sindh Rangers had appealed to the Supreme Court to allow them set up their own police stations in the violence-prone metropolis with prosecution powers and extensions in policing powers on yearly basis. The paramilitary force in its report to the apex court had accused the Sindh government of attempting to limit its legal powers against terrorists and their financiers. In December last year, the Sindh government had tried to clip the powers of the Rangers in Karachi by passing a resolution to put conditions on Rangers' special powers to raid and arrest suspects. The move was later rejected by Nawaz Sharif-led federal government. The Rangers had also blamed the Karachi police for its shoddy investigations, which led to the release of 1,100 suspects arrested during the Karachi operation launched in September 2013.
Exiled leaders from various provinces in Pakistan held a protest at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva against the alleged oppressive policies and human rights violations in the country. A report.
Exiled leaders from Pakistan-administered Kashmir, Balochistan, Gilgit-Baltistan and Sindh jointly protested at the Broken Chair outside the Palace des Nations against what they said atrocities and human rights violations by Pakistan authorities. The protest was organized as the 31st session of the Human Rights Council is underway in Geneva.
Basically, United Nations का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि ह्यूमन राइट्स वायलेशन जहाँ भी हो जो दुनिया में हर जगह हो रहे हैं उसका नोटिस ले और इंटरवीन करे. तो इसीलिए हम आ रहे हैं सारे जो मजलूम कौम हैं जो पंजाबी पाकिस्तान के नीचे पिस रहे हैं उनके बाबरिज्म की वजह से.
The protesters also submitted a memorandum to the United Nations demanding an end to the atrocities by Pakistan. The petition mentions discrimination against the people of Gilgit-Baltistan, controversies surrounding the ongoing China-Pakistan economic corridor, enforced disappearances of people in Balochistan, killing of political activists and atrocities faced by minorities across these regions.
Extrajudicial killings of political activists, abduction, torture, forced disappearances of political activists, then violence against religious minorities, particularly in Sindh, Sindhi Hindus, who are the one of the most vulnerable part of the indigenous Sindhi people, and there is a systematic campaign of terror and horror against them.
Every year, people from these regions in Pakistan have been holding protests outside the United Nations to highlight atrocities committed against them by the authorities. But the ground reality remains the same, even though several independent organizations have rapped Pakistan for enforced disappearances of people.
Hundreds of Afghan asylum seekers stranded in Greece's Idomeni border with Macedonia have pleaded the authorities to open the border, worrying that they would be sent back to their home country. Majority of migrants that are funneled into the bottlenecks in Idomeni are languishing at the border with little prospect of crossing. This comes a week after Macedonia started refusing entry to Afghans, announcing a daily cap on migrant arrivals. Hundreds of Afghans have been on a flee from their war-ravaged home country due to deteriorating security situation and soaring insurgency. Moving on to news from Bangladesh. A spelling mistake in an online bank transfer instruction prevented unknown hackers from pilfering nearly $1 billion last month, involving the Bangladesh Central Bank and the New York Federal Reserve. A report.
It was when a routing bank, Deutsche Bank, sought clarification from the Bangladesh Central Bank over a misspelled word. The transaction for money transfer was stopped. The unknown hackers had misspelled foundation in an NGO's name as Foundation, two senior officials from the bank said. But before that, 4 requests to transfer a total of about $81 million to the Philippines went through. Hackers managed to get away with about $80 million, one of the largest known bank thefts in history, after they apparently breached Bangladesh Bank's systems and were able to steal its credentials for payment transfers. Bangladesh Bank has billions of dollars in a current account with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, which it uses for international settlements. The Fed had received nearly 3 dozen requests from the hackers to move money from the Bangladesh Bank's account there to entities in the Philippines and Sri Lanka. The transactions that were stopped totaled $850 to $870 million, one of the officials said.
The United Nations has urged Sri Lanka to promptly investigate and address human rights violations of the past in order to prevent any recurrence of conflicts. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zaid Ra'ad Al Hussein, presenting his annual report to the 31st session of UN Human Rights Council or UNHRC in Geneva, said that grievances and other issues at the root of the past conflicts could continue to fester if remain unaddressed. The Sri Lankan government is beginning national consultations next month for the design of a comprehensive transitional justice process to fully implement the UNHRC resolution adopted at its 29th session on October 1, 2015. Hussein stressed on a surveillance and intimidation-free environment where the voices of victims can be heard. India's western Rajasthan province is famed for its majestic palaces, beautiful forts, art and culture. Endowed with natural beauty and a great history, Rajasthan is a tourist hotspot for both domestic and international visitors. And a trip to Rajasthan is not complete without digging into authentic Rajasthani food, the most famous of which is Dal Bati Churma.
Rajasthani cuisine offers an amazing variety of mouth-watering dishes. A favorite among both domestic as well as foreign tourists is Dal Bati Churma, a traditional Rajasthani treat. A platter of semi-sweet churma, spicy dal or lentil, and deep-fried bati or wheat rolls is what makes this dish.
Well, I love it. It's my favorite meal so far since I visited India for the last 2 weeks.
What do you want to say about the Rajasthani food and all?
Well, what I love most about it is that it is not only the sauces, it's also there's some solid food, and the vegetables each have a specific taste. Some are a little spicier, some are not as spicy, but all delicious with the sauces, and I really am enjoying it.
The dish baked with wheat flour dough that is stuffed with a mixture of roasted gram flour, spices and ghee or liquid butter, served with piping hot lentils, is a food for all occasions in Jaipur, the provincial capital of Rajasthan.
आजकल क्या है, दाल बाटी चूरमा का ऐसा चल रहा है कि वो ये एक राजस्थानी फूड और बहुत ही अच्छा, इसमें जो इसकी जो बनाने की विधि और खाने का जो स्वाद है ना, बहुत ही इतना टेस्टफुल है कि जो आदमी राजस्थान में आएगा इसको बहुत लाइक करता है। दाल बाटी चूरमा के अंदर इसके साथ में खाली दाल बाटी चूरमा नहीं होता, इसके साथ में सारी प्रिपरेशन होती है। इसके साथ में गट्टा करी भी होता है, राइस प्रिपरेशन भी होती है इसमें, और कड़ी भी होती है, राजस्थानी पूरा फूड भी साथ में होता है। तो उसका एक अलग से इसका एक क्रेज बना हुआ है, बहुत अच्छा, सारी चीज़ों का स्वाद आता है और सब चीज़ें बहुत अच्छी लगती है।
The cuisine of this region is greatly influenced by both the warlike lifestyles of its inhabitants and the availability of ingredients in this arid region. Rajasthan, the land of kings, is drenched in royal grandeur, a glorious past and a rich tradition that makes it one of the most charming and captivating provinces of India.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. Pakistan Supreme Court rejects Rangers' appeal for prosecuting power. Exiled leaders stage anti-Pakistan protests at United Nations headquarters in Geneva. And Afghan refugees stranded in Greece plead for open borders. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. They can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter at SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time next week. Have a great weekend and good night.